Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. Hope everybody is doing well. Just some quick housekeeping up top before we begin today's session. We are recording today's webinar, so if you would like to watch a replay, we can provide you with the link in the coming week. We will also be taking your questions towards the end of the call, so if you have any urgent queries, please leave them in the Q&A tab, which you can find at the bottom of your screen, and we'll answer them in the second half of today's call. All right, over to you, Shadi.
Thank you, Arjun. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Shadi Zaour. I'm the Employee Health and Benefit Country Leader in Saudi Arabia. It's a pleasure to be part of this webinar, and I would appreciate your time to attend this webinar, this valuable webinar. This is our 5th webinar we managed through the region. We all aware about the corona. We all aware about the pandemic, the severity behind that one. But I believe most of the company now more into respond or recover, and this is where we will touch base with you with the as an employer when it comes to manage our valuable resources, which is our people. And here is the added value to mind or stood beside our client. In the past 16 weeks, I believe most of the Marsh people were very close to our client, very close to their client, and we will keep closer also beside you. We know managing people, which is the most important valuable asset, it's not an easy, but being your partner, being your business partner, we will help you in that one. We'll help you in identifying those areas of the risk, identifying how we can tackle on it, how we can manage this one. And this is the purpose of that webinar. That webinar also will be followed by releasing a report, and the importance behind that report, whereby the account managers of your policies will be contacting you to guide you through that one and to help you how to address this report in a very effective way. In this call, we have our panel. We have, we'll start with ladies. We have Samantha Hayes. She's our senior MENA consultant. We have our most senior gentleman, Mr. Mark Budson. He's our, let's say, the strategic and development in Saudi Arabia. I will leave it to you, Sam, to guide us through the webinar. And thank you again for your attendance. Sam, the floor is yours.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Mark. So my name is Sam Hayes, and I'm one of the senior consultants in MENA here. Been in the region just under 3 years. So the report today, we are going to be first identifying the 8 risks that we feel businesses are going through in the current situation. So I'm going to take you through the first 8. We're then going to have a poll, and then we are then going to go through some of the solutions. So the first risk I want to talk to you about is about business disruption. So when you think about business disruption, you sometimes think about cash flow or lack of product, kind of the business coming to an end. But when we think about people, we're trying to understand what are the people risks about business disruption. So a big one that we talk about is that, unfortunately, some clients at the early stage of the pandemic would have had to let their people go. So there might have been some en masse letting people go. For some of our clients, they've had to cut salaries. But for some that have been very lucky, it's kind of they've kept the same workflow. So now most clients are going through the recover stage. So it's slowly going back to normal, slowly going back to the office, kind of the new norm. So what's happened to the people? We obviously need people, we need employees to make the business run. So what's happened if you've had to let people go? Are you going through a hiring process? Are you trying to attract new talent? Or are you trying to retain the existing talent? So what's happening with your people strategy? So that's what some clients will be going through, different stages throughout it. The second risk we want to talk about is about low productivity and poor performance. So for most of us, we've been working from home. So we've been in lockdown, bit of isolation. So what's happened to our day-to-day work? What we're generally noticing is that sometimes the benefit plans were outdated. Maybe there was exclusions, maybe there were certain benefits that weren't up to scratch. They needed to be enhanced. So potentially they were some of the risks that came up. What we're also discovering is the poor performance. So for some of our clients, you've got people that are working 10, 12, 14 hours a day. They're working so much more. Some clients, they're working more hours, but with less people. So again, what's happening with the performance? We're also noticing that mental health has been a big aspect during COVID. Now, I'm very conscious that mental health is still a taboo in some parts of the Middle East. But I think one thing that has come out of COVID-19 is that it's really brought to the conversation how important mental health is to everyone. Shadi and I were having conversations the other day, and he's just saying that clients in Saudi are starting to talk about mental health. They want to understand it. How can I help my employees? Which wasn't happening end of last year. So where are employees? Do you offer a solution as a company? Are you having a safe, creative, open space where mental health can be spoken about? Do you need help on it? Do you need support on it? These are the conversations that we are having with clients. Another risk that we've identified is the unexpected financial risk. So this is really looking at behavior of claims, the behavior of risk that is probably an anomaly. So for example, in Saudi, during lockdown, employees were encouraged not to go to the doctors. Don't go to the hospitals for sort of general aches and pains. So when we look at claims data, you've generally got a lull within the summer months. But what's now happening, lockdown is slowly decreasing. We're slowly starting to see an increase in claims again. So that's unexpected. If we looked back at the last 4 or 5 years of your claims experience, we probably wouldn't see this drop. So again, it's how to explain that, how to speak to the insurers about that change of risk. And then when we look at disability and the life claims, there might be some unexpected claims. So people might have been claiming under the temporary total disability. You might have had, unfortunately, some clients that have been in hospital, intensive care. So maybe you've claimed under the temporary total. And really unfortunate, and hopefully this hasn't happened, but some clients might have unexpected death claims. Again, really unfortunate if some people have died. So again, one-off claims experience, different behaviour. How do we explain that? How do we have that conversation with the insurers? And then second is rising costs. So a big thing that we talk about in the Middle East is medical inflation. So we know that global medical inflation is running about 9.7%. Within the Middle East, it's roughly around 13, 14%. Saudi is slightly lower, roughly between 5 and 6%. So what affects medical inflation? Well, it's inflation. And what affects inflation? It's the stock market. It's the global economic structure. It's all run off the dollar, the price of the barrel. We know that global influences affects the insurers. They all have reinsurers. All of their financial stability is surrounded by the global governments of the economic crisis. We're now talking about potentially going through another recession. So how will that affect the insurers? And then ultimately, how does that affect the cost, the medical inflation? That is a big driver within the Middle East. So the next slide, we then have the final four. So a big one that clients are concerned about is their reputation. So this is twofold. On one side, it's the public reputation. So what has a client done over the last 3 or 4 months, and how has that been perceived by the public? What have they had to do? How have they communicated how their business is running? What corporate responsibilities have they done? How have they supported their staff to the outside world? But what's more important is the internal reputation. So how do the employees perceive you? How have you looked after them? How have you communicated with them? do they feel valued? Do they feel that they're engaged? Are they understanding what's happening to the business? So for a lot of clients I speak to, it's all about the communication. So what strategies have they had in place? Have they had to create strategies? Did they have these policies and practices already there so they could basically just run? Or have they started to have to create something? And what we're also having conversations with is that initially, lockdown, potentially 2 or 3 months. We're now, though, in month 4 and 5. And for some clients, they're not going to be sending employees back for a long time. So potentially, policies you created at the beginning of lockdown, we thought were a short-term solution, but they might not be. So how are we going to review it? What's our long-term strategy for some of these policies that we might have to do? How do we continually engage with our staff? So for some companies, you're going to have half of your population in the office. So mainly, you'll be able to communicate with them. But what about my people that are still at home? How do you continue that communication? How do you keep that engagement? Number 6, we've then got safety incidences and violation. So one big thing that's sort of come out of COVID-19 is disruption to the human body. So I don't know about you, but I spend my life looking at a computer screen. I seem to be Zoom call to Zoom call to Zoom call, and my eyes sometimes don't have a break throughout the day. So how has looking at a computer screen affected me as an individual? How's my sleep pattern happened? Don't know about anyone else, but I very much had a disrupted sleep. So how's my general well-being affected? The fact that I'm tired all the time. How am I interacting with my colleagues? How am I interacting with my clients? What sort of my persona? Has it changed? Have I gotten more angry, short-tempered? So those are some things that clients need to be aware of, sort of the general well-being behaviour of people. And what's also then linked to that is then data privacy. So nearly 90% of data protection is due to human error. If your employees are tired, are they making mistakes? Are they sending the wrong email, sending it to the wrong contact? Are they attaching the wrong documents? What mistakes am I making because I might be tired? And also, what clients need to think about is kind of the data security. So when I was in the office, IT was on the same floor, we had computers, we had firewalls, everything was quite safe and secure. It was easy to control. We're now all working off our personal Wi-Fis. So again, how do businesses react to potential breaches? We know that scamming, phishing, Trojans, all of those have seen a sudden increase within COVID-19. So how is HR interacting with the business, interacting with the data security to ensure that A, we're safe, but then also maybe some training. So an average employee, we're not that tech savvy. So what do we need to know? Do we have protocols in place if we think we've been hacked? What are those solutions? So again, that might be a risk that HR needs to be aware of. And then finally, we've got the regulatory penalties. So we know that Saudi is full of compliance, CCHI. So again, one of the aspects of HR is to ensure that that risk is not held within the company. So us at MMB, we can help ensure that you are covered with all the changes in the legislation. So within the report, all of these 8 aspects are kind of detailed. You might be going through 1 or 2 of these. You might think that maybe this is something for the future, but this is generally what clients are going through, one of these or numerous of these 8 risks. So we're now going to go to the live poll. So a little bit of interaction. So what do you consider as the key drivers for health and benefit plans within your organisation? Improve workplace safety, improve employee morale and engagement, improve productivity and job performance, attract and retain employees, comply with legislation and reduce litigation, promote corporate brands and imaging, and contain costs. So if you can just click one that highlights you and your organisations most. We'll come to the results towards the end of the presentation. So the slide we've got up now is actually quite an interesting slide. So in January of this year, we performed a survey called Health on Demand, and we asked our Middle East clients, so for the key decision makers, what are your 3 main concerns in regards to the health and wellbeing program? What do you want it to achieve? First, at 47%, came out improving workplace safety. Second was about improving morale and engagement. And third, with 42%, was improving productivity, reducing employee and raising job performance. So this was pre-COVID. So some of the practical workplace safety. How do I make sure that people are safe? They're not getting injured. So it's going to be the physical side, but then also maybe the mental side of things as well. And then secondly, they saw it as an engagement tool. So how do I improve morale? How can I make sure that people are happy within the organization? And then thirdly, increase productivity. So what will be really interesting is that when we get to the results towards the end, has things changed? Do key decision makers have a different aspect of what they want their employee benefits to cover? Is there a change in the business strategy? Okay, so now we're coming to the part of the presentation where we want to help you out. So what are the solutions? What are the scenarios? How can you help the business practically? And what are maybe some of the conversations that need to be happening internally? And obviously, Marsh Saudi and MMB Middle East, we are here to help and here to support with these conversations. So first of all, we need to be very conscious that we need to engage with the workforce. We need to make sure that they're healthy, they're productive. How do we do that communication? So there are practical things you can do. So one thing that's very much come out of COVID-19 is probably digital. So it's the virtual care, it's the virtual GP, it's the digitalization of health. So again, during lockdown, we were encouraged not to go to hospital. Don't leave the house unnecessarily. So if you were ill, severely ill, of course you were going to hospital. But minor aches, minor pains, children's diseases, things like that, how are people coping? The body still gets ill, so it's not as if health stopped just because we were in lockdown. So as a company, how can you help your employees? So I know in Saudi, obviously digitalization is very much sort of coming into its own. So how as an employee can you support? What solutions are there? Does it link with my insurance policy? Does it need to be a standalone solution? Will my employees value it? How do I get this new concept? Because it is a new concept. How do I get that across to my staff? How do I show the value of it? How do I show that actually it's really good? It's a great innovation. How do I show that? Secondly, is mental health. So as I mentioned, very conscious mental health is still a taboo within Saudi and the Middle East, but I do think that conversation has started. I've had a couple of conversations with Saudi clients and they're on the start of this journey. They want support. How do I do this? So the how is kind of in 2 ways. The first is the solution. So the easy solution is something called an Employee Assistance Program, or an EAP. And an EAP is a confidential, independent helpline. It's manned by trained counsellors, mental health professionals, and as an individual, I can phone up, completely confidential, you don't have to give your name, just the company you work for, and you can talk to someone. HR, businesses, they're not mentally trained professionals, but these people on these helplines are. So I could talk about feeling depressed. I've been shut inside all the time, my mood has dropped, anxiety, am I going to catch COVID? How do I protect it from my family? Am I going to keep my job? What can I do? So these are a lot of scenarios that people are going through because of COVID. But another great thing about an EAP, it's got a wide of other varieties. So they also have financial support. So what if I've gotten into debt? How do I come out of it? How do I set myself a budget? It could also then be family support. So what if I have children? What can I offer in terms of support and talking to them about COVID? It could be I'm caring about my elder parents, so I want to have elder care support. I'm an expat, So what expat support can I get from these solutions? And I know that the Marsh Saudi guys have really started to talk about EAP to our clients. But secondly, within the mental health is offering that conversation. So as companies, it's about providing that safe environment, having a space where an employee can come and talk to HR. And the thought that it's not negative, I'm not going to be disadvantaged, I'm not going to have my career jeopardized because I'm talking about this. So it's creating that space. For some companies, it's, well, how do I do that? And it's just getting the conversation starting. It's getting senior people involved. It is saying it's okay. So you do Webexes, you do talks, you do seminars, you do education about it. It's a long, long path from where some clients are. So for a lot of clients in Saudi, it's just starting that conversation. And then thirdly, it's about well-being solutions. So pre-COVID, you could do a wellness fair. You could get the providers to come in, BMI, doctors, know your numbers, your height, weight, etc. So you can understand your health once you know your health. But we're in lockdown. These type of fairs aren't allowed to happening. So what as a company can we offer our employees? So again, a lot of it is virtual. So how do I keep myself safe? Basic hygiene. How do I prevent COVID coming into my home? It could be mental health support, it could be nutrition, it could be hydration, it could be sleep. It could be things like, how do I interact when I've got children at home? Can I work around that? So well-being is not just health and mental, it's also the financial, it's the spiritual, it's the religious, and it's the community as well. So some of our clients are having quiz Zooms. They're getting together on a Thursday afternoon with a cup of coffee and they're talking to each other. So again, not work related, try and make it a bit more social. So maybe that's something that some clients are doing here. Secondly, we talk about, go back a page. So secondly, we talk about choosing the suppliers. So this is where we talk about, is the insurer that you're with, is it the correct insurer? CCHI, are we covering COVID? Oh, we can go back a page. Is the insurer covering COVID? Are there any exclusions? How are they adapting to this situation? For some of our clients, it's about payment terms. So do we need flexible payment terms? What's happening with the inception invoice? What's happening with payments? So those type of conversations are happening as well. And another big thing, we need to make sure that the insurers are secure and stable. The last thing we want is an insurance company going into liquidation in Saudi. We can't have people uninsured. So again, we will be having those conversations on your behalf. Is the insurer correct? Am I with the correct provider? Thirdly, we then talk about communicating effectively. So this was a part of the Mercer Talent survey that we performed earlier this year. And we talked about how do you communicate effectively. So for the clients that were on, for those that have the virtual GP, we said, how often are you communicating this great solution of this virtual GP? And when I say communicate, I don't mean one-off. I don't just mean one email at renewal time. I mean regular engagement, every couple of months, every quarter. Webexes, newsletters, frequently asked questions, really showing off the power of the digital health. Only 18% of our clients said that they regularly gave updates to employees. But 82% aren't. They're either paying for it separately or it's a great add-on to the insurance contract, and maybe employees don't know about it. They probably don't value it. So again, how can you enhance that? How can you regularly communicate? An EAP, so only 24% regularly engaged in the EAP. Again, people might be new joiners. They might have not listened to the comms when it came out. We definitely know that when people are going through depression, anxiety, they don't hold on to short-term information. So they might have completely forgotten that it's there. So again, it's understanding, what do my employees want? What do they value? And what do we offer? So really try and understand that that's the key point. It's the gap analysis. It's the missing parts. And then fourthly, some of our clients are doing centralized decision-making. So pre-COVID, the person that made the decision about the renewal was probably HR. Maybe had a bit of procurement or maybe some finance were involved in the figures amount. But what we're definitely seeing nowadays is trying to broaden that conversation. So one conversation I had with a client was, well, our risk is changing internally. So the board is making decisions, finance is making decisions, and kind of HR is in the middle. So why not invite other parts of the business to join this conversation? Why not have a well-being strategy? Why not invite employees to be part of that committee? First of all, you're going to get different points of view. You're going to have a more broader, diverse and inclusion conversation. And secondly, you're trying to make this a long-term conversation, a long-term strategic approach to risk. Because again, that's what we're talking about, employee benefits through risk. So maybe broaden the conversation, broaden the committee that are involved in these renewal conversations. Next slide. Brilliant. So fifthly, we talk about a risk registry for employee benefits. So it's the practical side of where are your benefits saved? Do you have an intranet? Do you save them on a file somewhere? Do employees know where the table of benefits, the network list, the exclusion lists are? Do they have a handbook? Do they have a frequently asked questions document? Or are they coming to HR all the time? So again, it's trying to show employees we've got all these benefits and this is the one place where they're stored. Are your documents up to date? Are they a couple of years out of date? So again, it's reevaluating your processes. Sixthly, we talk about reviewing your benefits regularly. So benchmarking, gap analysis. A couple of conversations I've had with clients is, oh Sam, we did it last year. But last year, we were in a different world. Last year, most clients just wanted to be mid-market, in the middle of the pack. That we're okay with that. But again, going back to earlier conversations, are you trying to attract new staff? Are you trying to retain your existing staff? What's happening with your talent strategy? Do you need to change your benefit plans? Do you need to enhance them? Do you need to reduce some that aren't being utilized? The world is not the same, so your benefit plan strategy probably won't be the same. So again, think about it. It's not the same as always. Things have evolved, things have developed. Seventhly, we talk about risk financial optimization. So this is really kind of looking at the contract. So there is a premium. We know we have to pay the premium for the insurance contract, but is the insurance contract designed in the best possible solution? For some of our clients, they're mostly fully insured contracts. What about if you're a global client? Are you optimizing your global pooling partners? What about captives, global underwriting? Maybe a change of contract. You want to change your payment terms. You want deferred billing. You want a stop loss. There's all of these different contract designs that we can have on your behalf. And then finally, it's about securing private data. So everyone is aware that personal data does need to be protected. So as my employer, how are you protecting my personal data? How are you transporting it to the broker, to the insurers? How is that solution happening? So within Marsh Saudi and MMB MENA, we've got this solution called Darwin. So Darwin is our virtual platform. It's our engagement tool. It's our Flex, our voluntary platform. That is how we at MMB MENA and Marsh Saudi are interacting between ourselves, the client and the insurers, because the world has gone digital. I was on a call with the head of Darwin team the other week, and he was saying there's no such thing as a tech industry anymore. Every business has to have tech within their structure. Think about it. Everything is worked off apps, off your phone, off your laptop. We have the Generation X, the millennials. They're all in the workforce. They've never not known the internet. So as your progression, as your employees are progressing up the career ladder, that is the sector of employees that A, you're trying to retain, and B, trying to attract, because they're the future leaders. So as a business, as a company, how are you moving into that future? And digitalization is the way forward. It's all about being employee centric. So again, as an individual, Sam, I want to be seen as Sam. I don't just want to be a number. So again, what are businesses doing to kind of move into that future of employee benefits? So that's the end of me speaking. So hopefully you've kind of understood the 8 risks and then the 8 solutions. So we're now going to have the results. So just to remind you, what do you consider as the key driver for health and benefit plans in your organization? What is great to see is coming in first place is improving employee morale and engagement. In joint, second, third, and fourth, we've got improving productivity, complying with legislation, and containing costs. So I think what's really, really interesting is that on the global one, improving workplace safety was number 1. We've had no votes for that. So again, employee benefits, companies, HR communities, I think everyone is aware, employee benefits is about engaging your staff. It's the age-old phrase, happy workforce, healthy workforce is a productive workforce. So we've hopefully provided today the solutions of how you do that. So we've now got one more poll. So did you find this webinar and the information shared valuable to you and your organization? Yes, I'd like some more information. Somewhat, or no, I'm not interested in this information. Please click the one that applies the most. Okay, so as Shadi mentioned earlier, everything I've spoken about is now included within this report. Managing people risk through employee benefit plans during COVID-19. So the client executives, Marsh, Saudi, CE teams, the client execs, they will be sending out an email to you probably tomorrow and then on Tuesday and Wednesday. Please click on the link. You will then go to our intranet site and you'll be able to download the report that this presentation is based on. We then invite you to read it, and then we're going to be reaching out and starting to have conversations with you. So as I said, some of you will be having 1 or 2 risks, some of you maybe 3 or 4, maybe a few more. What we want to encourage is that we need to have conversations. So we are here to help. So very quickly, the results. So 3 of you, 75% said yes, I'd like more information, and 25 said somewhat. Thank you for not saying no, so that's great. So I'm now going to open up the line for now some Q&As. So again, if anyone does have any Q&As, please write it in the below in the Q&A section. And then Shadi and Mark and I will be able to answer your questions for the next 15 minutes or so. So we did actually, while we wait for people to come in, we did actually have some questions that got sent in prior to the call. So Mark and Shadi, how do I go about ensuring workplace safety for employees returning to the office and managing their anxiety around this? What if I have some employees that are uncomfortable to go back?
Yeah, maybe if I could touch on that. First of all, there is a workforce compensation program in Saudi that protects employees against disability and death. So that's a government-provided program. But I think on top of that, the emphasis will be around the program that the employer is providing. And there I can think of the medical program, of course, providing medical benefits, the group life program, and the group life program also includes disability insurances, either temporary or permanent. So I think the first thing is, I would call it a people risk matrix to actually measure the people risk that people might be exposed to as they return to work. And of course, you'll have different employee populations, different types of employees, blue collar, etc. And then matching that up against how your program will actually respond. Is the government responding? Is your own program responding? Are there gaps? Are you going to be self-insuring some of it? Or are you going to be educating people around it and leaving it to them? So a discussion needs to happen around those people risks. And of course, that's the whole premise of this presentation. I think the other thing I'd say is we've talked about returning to work safety. A big thing is, what about the employees that remain at home? In actual fact, the home is one of the most dangerous places you can actually be. You've only got to look at workers' compensation. So you've only got to look at accident programs and statistics around the world to realise the home is actually quite a dangerous place. There are falls, electricity, burns, all sorts of incidents that can happen to individuals at home. So what I'd say there is, think about your programs as people return to work, but just as equally think about the implications for them and the exposures for them and maybe the education around them staying at home and continuing to work at home.
Yeah. And what about if people are kind of scared to go back to the office? Like, what sort of advice would you give the people on this call?
I think you've got to be very careful about people that are unwilling or scared or tentative about going back to the office because they're probably expressing those feelings or thoughts for very good reasons. And I think there's a big education piece. For instance, at Marsh at the moment, only 10% of colleagues are returning to the office. We're being very conservative. And in actual fact, you don't have to go back to the office unless you want to. So I think over time, organisations will show by their actions and their processes and what they're communicating to employees that a return to the office is a viable and a safe option for them. But I certainly don't think it should be pushed.
Yeah. The big thing that we're talking about at the moment is empathy. So again, companies, HR needs to show that they are empathetic to their employees. And again, it's that communication, it's that continual engagement.
Precisely.
Brilliant.
Yeah, what we noticed recently, even though across the particular sectors, they are more alike when it comes to financial sectors. Again, to Mark's point, yes, they are very conservative and they're following the regulatory recommendation and they're making the ultimate precautionary measures in place. When it comes to those who are involving in the construction and the other related areas, they're also coming back cautiously, but with a more participation number, let's say. But again, government are very precise, very cautious about coming back to work. They're spreading a lot of engagement, a lot of recommendation, a lot of value added to them, and we are part of that one as well. Thank you.
Oh, that's good. So another topic that's talked about sort of a lot is sort of the new normal. So within Saudi, what do you think the future of the workforce will look like? What do you think future work will look like? Do you think any HR policies will have to change or adapt?
Personally, they will, and I think they are. I think that the new normal, whatever it is, I think the first thing it's shown for many organisations is that people can work remotely. And I think there's been years of talking remotely and using technology and that sort of thing with limited adopting of it because people didn't need to. They could still go to work, engage with their colleagues and all that sort of thing. I think what this has shown is that it absolutely works, that organisations can be very successful, that their employees can be successful in their roles. So I think a new norm will evolve. Technology will be absolutely key. But I think, Shadi, you wanted to add something.
Yeah, we agreed. Pre-COVID, it's definitely varies from post-COVID, and it's been proven that those those companies who invested in the technology, they've been paid off now, and they start harvesting this investment. People work remotely now became an option to most of those companies with the high tech, let's say, and whenever there is a deliverable through the technologies, they are taking these chances for it. Again, technology is limited to some, but when it comes again to different sectors, it might not help them. They need a physical presence, and that's where it will continue the same when it comes to the blue collars or to the construction or to those where they need really the manpower to be on the ground.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So a conversation I was having with a client the other day was sort of, how are employees changing? Are they asking for new things? Are they expecting, what are they expecting from their new employers? So one thing that I was talking about was all around flexible working hours. So pre-COVID, probably flexible working wasn't really part of the culture. But nowadays, people have had children at home, e-learning, that's now something that they're after. Do you kind of see that in Saudi?
Well, I think it's a mixed bag, Sam. I mean, it's interesting that you say that. And then I hear of other organisations where they're actually saying to their employees, make sure you stop work.
Yeah.
Because if you're at home working, it's just easy to run it on into the evening, and on it goes. And that's not a healthy thing either. So it's almost like at home, people have had to create artificial barriers, not barriers, pauses. You know, I will break at this time. I will do this at this time.
Yeah.
I'll do some exercise. So, you know, I think it's going to evolve, and I think it'll be quite fascinating, you know, the shapes and turns that it takes. I mean, less bricks and mortar for some organisations, the same for others. Downtown areas in some cities that are starting to die because the working population's not there anymore, they're at home. And I was talking to a colleague the other day who went into the work in Dubai for the first time and said he'd forgotten it was a 45-minute drive there and back. So, yeah, it is going to evolve, and it'll be quite fascinating.
Yeah. So it used to kind of be the work-life balance. It's now kind of the home-work balance again. When do you stop? It's so easy, just can do emails late into night. So again, it's great that companies are looking after the health and well-being of their staff. What else do you think will evolve in Saudi? So as you guys both know, I'm very much an advocate for mental health, sort of positive mental conversations. Do you kind of see Saudi evolving, talking about mental health?
Yeah, we do see it evolving. I'll tell you an area I see it in is with group life and disability policies. So, for example, there wasn't much prevalence for those 6-7 years ago. Now international organisations, of course, are putting them in place, but many Saudi organisations are as well. We put the SAMA program in place. But interestingly, those programs used to have a lot of exclusions. They had mental illness exclusions, they had suicide exclusions, all of those sorts of things were built in, and the insurers were getting away with it. Now all of that's gone. So we've actually shifted the market to have those solutions accommodate for mental health and wellness.
Yeah. And do you think the conversation is easy to have, or do you think because of cultural and religious factors it's going to be harder maybe for some clients than others?
I don't think it's ever, even in countries where these sort of issues might have been more prevalent or been more open, I still don't think it's easy. I think some countries are embracing it more, but really how many people are keeping those sort of issues personally for themselves, to themselves? That's a hard thing to gauge. But I know for us as a Saudi organisation, there are daily check-ins. We're continually saying to our people, are you well? If you're not, put your hand up. Are you struggling in some way? And I'm sure many other organisations in Saudi are doing the same.
Yeah. So it's having that open conversation. That's what I think I'm hearing. Yeah. Brilliant. So another question has come in as well. How can I manage the cost of medical insurance for my employees?
Yeah,
this is the everlasting issues. This is our
bread and butter.
This is the bread and butter. This is our daily engagement with the client. Again, applying the new norm. We're very open and very straightforward with our client to give them the right advice. We can change the program. We can minimize the benefit. We can restructure the benefit. But we need to have the balance between that. We can make it less cost, but on the other hand side, we need to maintain the client expectation and the client experience, which is the end user, who is the employee themselves. By making the balance between both, it's a very critical and challenging. Nevertheless, the medical in Saudi market, it's regulated by CCHI. We have the minimum, and we're putting the fat around it, some additional benefit on it. For some companies, yes, they came straight to the point saying, please remove those fats and keep it as per the regulatory. We need it with the minimum. That, it goes without saying, they will have an immediate impact on the cost itself. But on some other companies, they would like to retain it, and they ask for a long-term impact, whereby we can apply some minor changes on it, applying some type of deductible on high utilization, on high, let's say the high cost hospitals, whereby they can see a minor immediate impact, but a major long-term impact. And that helped a lot of companies to contain or to minimize the cost going forward.
Yeah, I think the first premise is to understand how it's performing. You don't understand how it's performing without proper analytics, things like benefit map, periodic reviews, they can all help. But at the end of the day is to understand that Saudi is a highly regulated market with actually a generous level of medical benefits that's compulsory. So you can't avoid providing dental, you can't avoid providing optical. And I think to Shadi's point, it's that balance between what you have to provide, what you'd like to provide on top of that, and meeting the expectations and needs of the workforce.
Yeah. And I think this workforce is evolving. Again, they've gone through COVID, they've gone through lockdown, and they want certain benefits. They want to know they're being looked after.
They do, definitely.
Yeah, some companies start looking also for more technology, for more mobile apps, for more telemedication, rather than to go for higher dental benefit or higher optical limits. They're more into having more added value benefit to them, rather than to go for a luxurious benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point.
So I got asked the other day, how can I help my employees understand telemedicine? So the client didn't have it, and they were like, we really want to push this, but again, culturally, I can just go to any hospital. How do I kind of educate my employees to use it? So have you had that conversation with any of your Saudi clients about how to start the conversation and how to engage?
Yeah, this being provided by selected providers. It's not within the insurer themselves. This is being promoted by the hospital themselves, whereby you can access their website, select the service you want to opt for, and use your medical information to support that one and to get it done. Yeah. Again, still limited to handful, let's say, or 10, 15, whatever providers they are using, but we're optimistic that it will be across tier 1 medical provider, whereby it's an added value to them. It's a sort of marketing and sort of, let's say, less headache or less exposure for the people on the other hand side, rather than to visit the facilities itself. Yeah. Again, to Mark's point, yes, it's evolving more.
Yeah. I mean, just imagine where Saudi will be in the next 5 years. I mean, it's
highly, the whole medical environment is highly evolved now.
Yeah, no, that's good.
And it'll go even further.
Brilliant. Well, we haven't had any live Q&A, so just reaching out to the attendees. Is there any questions that you wanted to ask Shadi or Mark? Okay. Well, I just wanted to say thank you very much, Shadi and Mark, for letting me talk today to your Saudi clients. It has been an honour, so thank you very much. I do appreciate it. Thank
you, Sam. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for having you in this webinar, and thank you for the attendees. It's been a pleasure also, as always, to have you, and look forward to meeting you in person.
Thank you.